2, 1.
Keep pushing. In this lap. You can do it. It's 4.7 seconds. 5.6 seconds.
It's a one of a kind, only in the DTM.
Yes, man, you did it.
Thank you, guys.
Go, 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 go.
Yeah!
It's all about more this year in the DTM 2015, qualifying for race 2, about to get underway here at a damp Hockenheim circuit. Very good morning to you. We're here to bring you qualifying as we take a look at race 1 from yesterday and the highlights from that. And the big highlight was the fact that Jamie Green, absolutely with a blistering start, was going to be untroubled despite safety car phases as we see them through this first section of turns. Then as this race 1 got underway yesterday, this brief summary of it, and in terms of short, sharp action to bring, it was supreme. With me alongside is David Addison, and we saw many moves during the course of race 1 yesterday. Paul di Resta and Pascal Wehrlein, one of those swapping places early on.
We also, Dave Richardson, saw a lot of retirements, and Tom Blomqvist sadly was one of them. You say it's all about more action we had yesterday. Denis Juncadella went off into the gravel and brought out the first of 2 safety cars that we had during the course of the race. And although there was lots of action, trouble was when cars rubbed against each other, it just did enough damage, because they're fairly fragile beasts, DTM cars, to render them out of the race with suspension damage or worse. And so I think a third of the field failed to make it home yesterday. Jamie Green controlled all the restarts. Martin Tomczyk did not control that after a restart. Cold tyres, he had faded brakes as well, and wiped out both the ART Grand Prix cars. He hit Gary Paffett and then got T-boned by newcomer Lucas Auer, and Gary Paffett was still fuming about that many hours later.
Well, this was Pascal Wehrlein going past Paul di Resta and regaining that place. And whatever place swaps were going on behind, this man had it all completely under control. It was a completely faultless drive from the Audi start that is Jamie Green, as he took first blood in the all-new DTM for 2015. He took the race 1 win by some 2.3 second margin over Pascal Wehrlein and Paul di Resta.
And so very shortly, the second qualifying session here is going to get underway. So 20 minutes. This was how the race looked yesterday, with Jamie Green the victor by 2.3 seconds in the end from Pascal Wehrlein. Paul di Resta had fading brakes, didn't he, towards the end, and ended up in 3rd place. But that's a great turnaround after the woes that Mercedes seemed to have last year. The road is wet but drying, but there is the forecast of more rain. And look, everybody wants to get a banker lap in before the possibility of more rain comes. It's going to be a very busy start to this session, in contrast from yesterday in the dry.
Yes. Now, Jamie Green yesterday in qualifying went out and banked early on, didn't he?
Yeah.
But there's a whole queue there awaiting the green light for today's session. Bruno Spengler it is that's going to be the first there. He's queued up behind the lights, and Jamie Green, interestingly, still in the garage there and not forming part of that queue at the moment. Thoroughly deserved his win yesterday. It was a great drive from Jamie, and whatever the race threw at him in terms of safety cars, he was able to cope with it.
Absolutely right. Now, talk about people wanting a banker lap. The other reason you might not want to go out is because circuit's busy. You also want other people to help dry the road. The road is getting drier all the time, and the real gamble might be towards the end of this, is it going to be dry enough for slick tyres? I'm not convinced it will be, And if they can get away with just doing the times as we go green on wets, they've saved themselves a set of slicks for later on in the day, assuming the weather conditions allow for that. So everybody going out on track. Gary Paffett drives number 2, Mike Rockenfeller number 99, Marco Wittmann, the reigning champion, is number 1. Big numbers on the windscreens to help with identification, and drivers choosing their own number now. So for many of them it has a real significance. Matthias Ekström, for example, carries 5 because it was the Renault 5 championship that he won as his first title, for example. Mike Rockenfeller wanted a number that would be recognisable, and 99 was the biggest number he could have. He wanted either end of the scale. He wanted either number 1 or 99.
Okay.
And 1 was Marco Wittmann's as the reigning champion. So 99 it is that Rocky will carry. We have 8 former champions in DTM this year. It is, as ever, ultra competitive. Some new drivers and a new team as well. More Mercedes in the entry this year. And ART Grand Prix, Frederic Vasseur's squad operating the cars. And that has a great track record in Formula 3, GP2, GT racing. And it's going to be a winning team in DTM, you can guarantee it.
Sadly, Dr. Setcher that we saw there from Mercedes-Benz. Sadly, our Grand Prix didn't have the opportunity to show their winning ways yesterday as both the cars were taken out, David.
Indeed so, and by a BMW out of control, Martin Tomczyk's car. BMW had a pretty rotten day yesterday, it's got to be said, with Maxime Martin really being the man that upheld the factory's honour, his best result since his win in Moscow, in fact, 7th place. But this is Bruno Spengler, who is a former champion, of course. He took BMW to its first title in its comeback year. Spengler yesterday struggled a bit. He was only 11th, and there's no real doubt at the moment that the road is still wet.
So Spengler then goes across the timing line to start the clock then. And Max Goetz it is that is behind, but here comes Bruno Spengler now that we watch. Bruno finishing down the order in P11 yesterday. The BMW bank car of Bruno Spengler. Searching there for grip and traction. And I have to say where I slightly disagree with you, perhaps, David, is looking from our commentary position, which is right on the start-finish line, is I think that certainly in this section the track is drying a bit more than perhaps you think.
Might be right. Certainly now with more cars out there it's going to help, and the dry line is getting drier all the time. It'll still be a little bit greasy offline, won't it? But it is looking a bit more optimistic, I think, this now for a dry road come the very end. And if that is the case, then it's going to be the last man over the line that will get pole position just about, because with every car coming through and the road getting drier and quicker, it's going to be a really good end to the session.
Well, it was Bruno Spengler back last year at the Norrisring who was the very first to dive in and get slick tyres on and was able to take advantage of that. But at the moment, certainly wet running. And we're following Bruno Spengler then as this qualifying for race 2 is underway now. Qualifying, of course, completely different format to that we've seen before in DTM. And the whole format across the weekend is different, with 2 races now, one on a Saturday or one on a Sunday, and many of those Saturday races during the course of the season going to be twilight races as well. So Bruno Spengler on what is going to be the first time lap that we see as he heads towards the final turn now, and will head up towards the timing line, and at least will give us a benchmark figure from which to judge the rest of the 16.5 minutes of qualifying to come. Here is Bruno Spengler then with a 1:45.838 for the BMW bank driver. As off goes Marco Wittmann. Champion didn't have a great time of it yesterday. As to be said, Marco Wittmann finishing down there P9. In fairness, I think it's okay to say that BMW weren't where we expected them to be yesterday, as Pascal Wehrlein dives into the pit lane. Robert Wickens the next to show, and he does a 1:45.361. It's Max Goetz that tops the table at the moment with a 1:45.285, but do expect those times to come tumbling down. Scott and Wickens, and then Farfus, then Gary Paffett, who got unceremoniously clunked into yesterday and saw his race over. None too pleased about that, quite understandably as well. Eduardo Mortara then with a new colour scheme for this year, and already only 15.5 minutes left to run in this session. Goetz then with a 1:45.285 is the first to show. Now we watch the car of Eduardo Mortara. There you can see on the bottom of your screen where everyone is at in this qualifying at the moment.
Yeah, Mortara had a good day yesterday, didn't he? Third on the grid and fourth in the race.
Yep.
New colour scheme for him for this year. Castrol Edge going to Audi from BMW. There's Maxime Martin, quicker than anybody in the first sector. 10th he is at the moment. He's on track behind Martin Tomczyk, and off the road behind has gone Tom Blomqvist, stepping up from FIA Formula 3 to the DTM for this year as part of the BMW factory teams and replacing the American Joey Hand in so doing. But Maxime Martin now with 2 personal bests because Paul de Resta has gone quicker than anybody in Sector 1. So Maxime Martin making his way up towards the completion of the lap. This should put him at the top, or at least near the top, but only briefly.
The top there at the moment with Danny Juncadella. The 1:45.210. Here comes Maxime Martin then, heading towards the timing line. And Martin goes quickest with a 1:44.423.
But Paul de Resta is going to be the next one to watch. He's in the middle sector, quicker than anybody in Sector 1. And the Scotsman, former champion, ex-Force India Grand Prix driver, personal best in the middle sector, so he's lost a fraction of time. Martin Tomczyk is second, incidentally, now behind Maxime Martin. Third is Juncadella, fourth is Goetz, fifth is Wicken, sixth is Wittmann. But de Resta looking good at the moment, and with the white sidewalls, is on slicks.
That's what I think. That's what I think. So this is Paul de Resta then, we think, being the first of those that we've followed to run on the slick tyres.
And I'm just watching Mortara having a pit stop, and he's going on to slicks as well as de Resta goes quickest, and that's all the evidence people now need. It's dry enough.
What did I say? I just felt that it was drying out enough. Here's Mike Rockefeller now. Sports that number 99.
Jamie Green's just gone by, and he's on slicks. And those that are pitting are now going to go on to slick tyres. So some have done the banker lap on the wets. Nico Müller is on slicks. He's just gone past us. So here we go. It's all going to shuffle around, isn't it, for the remaining 13 minutes of the session.
There's Mike Rockefeller then in the familiar Schaeffler colours that Mike Rockefeller has run, and seeing him at work now inside that Audi. De Resta then 1:11 and 1:11.574 for Mike Rockefeller. Now, PB in Sector 1. Sector 2, fairly ordinary. What can Mike Rockefeller do? A 1:42.829 is the time from Paul de Resta. Right at the top of the chart at the moment. Here comes Mike Rockefeller now. One of those former champions in the pack. A 1:42.522 puts him right on the top of the chart, David.
It does for the moment, but Paul de Resta has got 2 absolute bests in the Mercedes, so Paul de Resta is in the last sector. He's going to be the next one to watch. Pascal Wehrlein has done 2 personals. That's going to bring him up the order, and he goes third fastest now. Paul de Resta down to fourth, but he's about to come across the timing line. It's Rockefeller from Miguel Molina, and Timo Scheider goes fastest, which is a good story. I'll come to him in a moment on a 42.2. De Resta into the 40s, 1:40.584. Quicker by 1.692 seconds from Timo Scheider, who yesterday ended up in the medical centre with a pretty sore arm because he was hit, the steering wheel snapped against his hand, he was in a lot of pain.
I spoke to Timo this morning, and whilst the hand is still bandaged up, and he says there is still some pain there, but he didn't think it was going to be sufficient to prevent him doing the very, very best job he can this afternoon when we go racing again with race 2 for DTM. So 1:45.64 for Paul de Resta, who was on the podium, of course, yesterday, and proving the fact, I think, David, that for season 2015, having had a torrid couple, Mercedes are back in it.
Go along with that, that's for sure. As got there, Danny Juncadella. Now, what's he up to at the moment? 10th is the answer. Where is Matthias Ekström, who you might anticipate to go well in these conditions? He's not yet done a lap time.
No.
So Eki, I think, has been biding his time. He's going to go for 1 run, isn't he, on slicks right at the very end, and see how far up the order that will get him. But if you are going to time this to perfection, you need to be virtually the last man over the timing line. De Resta then ahead of Nico Müller, who's now up to second, but he's still over a second back. Molina goes second, and Rockefeller goes top now. Mike Rockefeller at 1:40.3 goes quickest of all.
Picking up on your Ekström theory, you've also got to be extremely confident and totally blemish-free.
Absolutely right. Well, there's no argument about Eki's car control. Here's Robert Wickens, who's about to go over the timing line to go second fastest. 1:39.724. Robert Wickens, formerly part of the Red Bull driver programme, but was one of those that didn't stay the course. Works his way up towards turn 2. This next lap's going to go all wrong, isn't it? Because there's traffic looming up the road for him. And Mike Rockenfeller has done another good sector 1. Augusto Farfus, quickest of all in the BMW with 39.7. And Farfus is backing it up by going quicker than anybody on the next lap in sector 1. Ekstrom still hasn't done a time, incidentally. Rockenfeller then, who was fastest a moment ago, is down to 7th. It's Farfus, Wickens, Green, Mortara, Muller, Wehrlein, Rockenfeller, Scheider, De Resta, Molina, the top 10.
Now, the thing is, with this new qualifying system that we have here, you're trying to find clear air as well, and Rocky is in traffic now.
Ekstrom, 6th when he crossed the line, but now 7th because Vitoris has gone 3rd, but Ekstrom is in the ballpark.
Right.
9 minutes to go, on board with Rockenfeller.
So there is Mike Rockenfeller then, Bruno Spengler there, and also just ahead of him is Molina. So Mike Rockenfeller crosses the line now to go fastest, a 1:39.082 from Mike Rockenfeller, sends him to the top. Comes Gary Paffett now. What can Gary Paffett deliver? Gary Paffett goes 2nd fastest after a torrid time he had yesterday through no fault of his own. He's P2 now.
No, he's not, because he's 3, because Farfus is quickest. He might be 4 in a moment, because as each car comes through, yeah, Scheider goes to the top of the times now, 38.7. Timo Scheider ahead of Farfus. What about yesterday's winner, Jamie Green? He's 10th. He's done an absolute best. He's done a personal best. Is this going to be provisional pole position for the orange Audi of Jamie Green? The Monaco-based Brit goes over the timing line, and as Paul De Resta goes quickest, Jamie Green goes 2nd fastest. De Resta, Green, Scheider, Farfus, Rockenfeller, Paffett, Gertz, Molina. Mortara, though, now quickest of all. Mortara goes top, 38.4. It's further proof of how quick the road is drying.
We're on board with Matthias Ekstrom now. A personal best sector 1, best of everyone in sector 2. Matthias Ekstrom on a charge here. And he does it. He goes P1 with a 1:38.325. These times are tumbling down, and I so want to say Paffett's fastest.
But he ain't there yet, because he's only 10th, and on this lap he's done a personal best. So Paffett's gone quicker in the first sector, but he's not yet there for the ultimate lap time. But there are still 7.5 minutes to go, so there is the possibility that you might get Paffett for pole. Meantime, here he is. He's done an absolute best in sector 2. So this is a good lap. Gary did so much development work with Mercedes last year, kind of sacrificed some of his own races to try and work on the car to move it forward to make it a winner for this year. And if anybody deserves some success, it's Gary. He's been a real stalwart of Mercedes. He has been a really good ambassador for the brand. Matthias Ekstrom is fastest for the moment, but as he comes across the line, Paffett's gone quickest, a 1:37.904. Gary Paffett goes top.
Absolutely brilliant from Gary Paffett as Toto Wolff looks on then and keeps an eye on all those times. But now Robert Wickens goes quicker still, a 1:37.871.
And there are plenty of people pitting for 1 second set of slicks, so we're not done yet. And Mortara should go quickest this time because he's done the absolute, then the personal, sorry, the other way around, personal and absolute best across the sectors. And here he comes. He is currently 7th, and he's about to break the beam now. And Mortara goes on to pole position, a 37.702. Next, Blomqvist up towards the line. What's Tom Blom going to do? He was 20th. He's gone quickest of all, Tom Blomqvist. 1:37.574. Right, any more for this? The next car over the line is Lucas Auer. And Lucas doesn't go to the very top, but he does improve to go 7th. Vitoris has gone across the line and has gone 5th. I tell you, you're going to have to time that last run, because if you are not the last man over the line, you're going to get dropped big time. Ekstrom, new set of boots. See how much wetter the pit lane is.
Yeah, absolutely. This is absolutely brilliant.
Now, Farfus, absolute best, personal best. Augusto Farfus from the back of the grid yesterday got into the top 10. He's currently 6th fastest, Augusto Farfus. You're riding with Gary Paffett, who has done a personal and an absolute best. And let's see whether he comes over the line ahead of Farfus. Yes, he does. So let's do Paffett first of all. GP goes fastest of all. Paffett pole again, 1:37.2. And then Augusto Farfus is about to pit. In fact, he aborts the lap. So the sectors are on the screen, but the car's in the pit lane. And there he is, nosing his way down the pit road now.
This is very exciting.
I like any activity like this, whether it's a race or a qualifying session. Changeable conditions always add something. And we've got 5 more minutes to go. That's enough for another 2 runs, 2 laps, 1 continuous run, but a couple of laps as RBM cycle farfers through a pit stop here.
Now, Wickens with a 1:36.881 is quickest. Paffett P2, then it's Wittmann P3, then it's Tom Blom, as you've called him. Tom Blomqvist is P4. Antonio Felix da Costa P5, then Pascal Wehrlein, but it's changing every single moment, isn't it?
It is. Blomqvist in the pit lane. He's just been to the scrutineering area, and there's some confusion over Blomqvist because he's not making his way down the pit lane as yet. And I'm a bit concerned about this. I'll come back to Blomqvist in a moment when I've seen what's happened to the car, but he's being held.
And he hasn't got time for this, has he? He's got just 4 minutes left on the clock.
He's been pulled out of the scrutineering area, I think. But anyway, Blomqvist for the moment is stationary in the pit lane. The order: Wickens, Vitoris second, Paffett third, Wittmann is fourth, Blomqvist fifth, da Costa sixth, Wehrlein seventh, Mortara eighth, Auer ninth, Farfus is 10th.
But here comes Gary Paffett to cross the line now and does a 1:36.871. So once again, Paffett goes quickest.
And Ekstrom's 11th, Spengler is last, Glock is penultimate. Throw all the names up in the air and see how they land, really. That's going to be the grid, isn't it? Here's Marco Wittmann.
Marco Wittmann, the champion. Done a PB, Sector 1, Sector 2. Is currently P4, absolutely wrestling with that car now as he heads towards the timing line. What can Marco Wittmann deliver? P2.
And Rockenfeller is fastest. He'd gone ahead of Paffett, so Gary's down to third. The other one to watch now is Jamie Green, because he'd done an absolute best in the first sector, but Ekstrom has gone quicker. Scheider goes top. There's Jamie Green. He'll be an improver this time, but Matthias Ekstrom, 16th fastest, will be the next one. Need to keep an eye on him. Let's just take Jamie Green to the end of the lap first. Ahead of him, one of the Mercedes up towards the timing line. How's Ecky's second sector doing? He's not got to the beam yet. Here's Jamie Green. Is this pole position ahead of Paul de Resta? No, it's not. Jamie losing out a bit. Personal best across all the sectors, but not as good. Right, Ekstrom. He has done an absolute best in sector 2. The absolute best in sector 1 has been bested by Rockenfeller now. But Ekstrom should get himself up to the pointy end of the grid on this lap alone. He's 19th at the moment, so 2.5 minutes. He'll get 1 more lap at least out of the session, possibly 2 if the tyres allow. Here comes Ekstrom. This should be the front of the grid. Provisional pole position for the Swede, question mark. Breaks the beam and he goes fastest of all, a 1:35.623. Ekstrom top for now.
And we say for now because there are 2 minutes left to run in this session, and we're with Mike Rockenfeller now. Best overall in Sector 1, as David mentioned a few moments ago. PB in Sector 2. Is Mike Rockenfeller going to improve? I think it's almost definite as he crosses the beam now. Mike Rockenfeller goes quickest, 1:35.488.
Bruno Spengler's just gone across the line up to 4th. Maxime Martin has just gone up to 6th. Everybody that crosses the line goes quicker. De Resta, here he is, personal, then an absolute best. Paul de Resta 3rd in the race yesterday, and if he doesn't get caught up in traffic, this is going to be part of. I think this lap could be squandered there. Juncker has gone off, there'd have been a yellow anyway, and I think this lap would have gone against de Resta. A spinning Mercedes and Wehrlein ahead of him. De Resta crosses the line, and he stays 4th fastest. Were he to get pole under a yellow flag zone, that wouldn't have gone down terribly well, but de Resta can feel himself very unlucky there. That lap got away from him, not anything that he could control.
No, absolutely. So we have just 1 minute and 10 seconds left in this qualifying session.
Mortara's just gone 3rd. Molina, absolute best in Sector 1 in number 17. There he is, behind Maxime Martin. And there's less than a lap time left in the session. So anybody crossing the timing line now is going to be onto their last lap. So here is Ekstrom, absolute and a personal. This should put him back onto pole position, and he's got 1 more shot at it. He's down to 3rd. Ekstrom comes through, breaks the timing beam now, goes fastest to 34. The first man into the 34s, 34.987, and we've got 35 seconds to go.
So another lap for Matthias Ekstrom if the tyres will allow, but he is provisional pole at the moment at 1:34.987. We're watching Miguel Molina right now. He is P8 at the moment, and a PB in Sector 1, a fairly ordinary Sector 2. Miguel Molina then, as he comes around the line with a best of anyone from Wickens in Sector 1, as Molina doesn't. Yes, he does improve, goes up to P7.
Ekstrom, absolute best in Sector 1 again, so he's still on it. Farfus has just gone through. Glock, Da Costa, Blomqvist. Da Costa goes third, a 36.3. What about Blomqvist in the end? 15th fastest. Scheider up to 5th. The rest are improved, but stays 5th fastest. Here's Mortara. This could be pole, Dave.
Edo Mortara then. As Jamie Green ahead of him, here comes Edo Mortara then, and he heads towards and will cross the beam. Jamie Green goes through. Here comes Edo Mortara. He goes P2.
Okay, so Ekstrom is still top. He's done an absolute and a personal best on this lap, Matthias Ekstrom. And how many more cars are behind him that could threaten him? Nico Müller goes over the timing line and is 9th fastest. Here is Ekstrom. There is one car ahead, but I don't think he's going to be threatened by that. But the other one not to rule out yet is Gary Paffett. Gary is still on a quick lap as well, and so is Mike Rockenfeller. So Ekstrom goes through and is quicker still, a 34.7.
Here comes
Gary Paffett could go faster yet.
Gary Paffett crosses the beam now and goes 4th fastest.
What happened there? It was strung together well enough, but just not good enough in the sectors. And Mike Rockenfeller is the other man that might just do something, because he had done a personal best in sector 2. Rockenfeller across the line. Goes quickest of all. 34.516. Rockenfeller pole.
And he did that all in sectors 2 and 3.
Are we done yet? Spengler goes through. Maxime Martin goes through. Molina goes 2nd. Oof, that was close, because he was only 300ths shy. Adrian Tombay across the line. Then it's Glock, then it's Da Costa. And then it is Tom Blomqvist. And I think we're just about done. Mike Rockenfeller ahead of Molina by 3/100ths of a second. And Mike Rockenfeller, provisional pole.
What you said made absolute right. It was those that were going to be out last that were going to be able to get the very, very best out. So Mike Rockenfeller, the man that has done that, as we see him now on screen. And congratulations all round in the Audi garages. Rockenfeller, Molina, Ekstrom, then Wittmann. Then it's Mortara, Tomczyk, Da Costa, and Paffett, P8. But that is the man of the moment, a 134.516 from Mike Rockenfeller. Wow, that was exciting.
Note to Sven Stopper, the race director, if every race day morning you could just arrange for some Bowsers to go out and wet the track so that it's wet to start with and dries towards the end, we'd all be very happy, because that made for a great session. Not, though, if you were at Mercedes. And Toto Wolff, decidedly grumpy about that. Where's the best Mercedes in the end? 8th, Gary Paffett.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So Mike Rockenfeller is the man of the moment. He was 5th in the race yesterday. He was 6th on the grid yesterday. But you ruled him out at your peril.
Yes.
What a great session.
It was a great session. Absolutely fantastic to be part of that. Cars all making their way down the pit lane then. Will all be parked up. Now, bear in mind, David, yesterday, Parc Fermé incidents, weren't there?
Yes, Gary Paffett lost a time because engineers went into Parc Fermé to change a sensor on the car instead of waiting until the cars were released. And also, Augusto Farfus was excluded from qualifying yesterday because there wasn't enough fuel left to get a sample for checking at the end of the session. So a couple of the teams slipped up there yesterday. The point being that the story isn't over until the times are officially published.
As we see Mike Rockenfeller then leave his car. What a great job he's done. And Matthias Ekstrom, those two, to be fair, provided plenty of entertainment during that qualifying session for us, didn't they? As did this man.
Well, as did they all at some point. Most people had to go on the top of the times.
Very, very good qualifying for Audi, isn't it?
Disappointing for Mercedes, best 8th, and the last 3 on the grid, Mercedes as well. So you can, I know it's a bit of a lottery, a session like that. It doesn't give you a true indication, maybe, of a car's absolute pace. But Mike Rockenfeller fastest from Miguel Molina and Matthias Ekstrom. Marco Wittmann 4th ahead of Edo Mortara, and Martin Tomczyk 6th ahead of Antonio Felix da Costa. Gary Paffett 8th, Maxime Martin ahead of Robert Wickens, Adrian Tombay, and Paul de Resta in 12th. 13th, Augusto Farfus in his BMW ahead of Timo Scheider. So despite the pain Timo is in, he's ahead of Bruno Spengler and then Nico Müller. Timo Glock 17th ahead of Pascal Wehrlein, runner-up in the race yesterday. The winner yesterday, Jamie Green, starts 19th on the grid ahead of Lucas Auer and Tom Blomqvist. Then it's newcomer Max Goetz ahead of Christian Vitoris and Danny Juncadella. a grid like that is going to make for a brilliant race.
It is going to make for a brilliant race. And the other factor to consider is the changeable weather conditions. As we look at Mike Rockenfeller, I look quite as pleased with his work as I think he should do, if I'm honest with you, but did a fantastic job. And there's Pascal Wehrlein, who won't be quite as happy with his, will he? Qualifying down there in P18. Jamie Green and Matthias Ekstrom together there as all the drivers go to be weighed, including Gary Pavitt. You can see to the very left of your screen now, turned around and heads back down. And yeah, back to the changeable conditions. You know, it's forecast that there could be another shower or two, David.
Yeah. Gary Pavitt, I think, content with that. Gary's been around long enough to know that in a session like that, it's all about timing and where you are relative to the checkered flag. And so even though he's 8th, it could have been completely different.
Yes.
Had he been, you know, slightly later out of the pit lane or earlier to get another lap in, it wasn't to be.
There are so many elements to get right, aren't there?
Yeah, and the guys on the pit wall have to try and look after that as best they can. Something has to give. So Matthias Ekstrom 3rd, Miguel Molina 2nd, Mike Rockenfeller top. It's been a pretty decent weekend for Audi. A race win, of course, yesterday and pole thanks to Jamie Green. And 3 of the Audi A5s locking out the front of the grid. Looking at Matthias Ekstrom there, but Mike Rockenfeller it is who took the time. There is the Schaeffler Audi, the familiar colours of Mike Rockenfeller in the DTM. And so P1, number 99.
Well, Mike with it all to do in the race that comes up a little bit later today. The all-new DTM for 2015. Double the action and certainly double the excitement for a big crowd that's expected here at Hockenheim to enjoy this festival of motorsport, and the highlight being, of course, DTM and the first round of DTM. So there are conversations going on with Paul de Resta and the head of DTM, and also the head of Mercedes-Benz Motorsport, Toto Wolff there. None of them looking very chipper.
No, I think that's all about the lap where de Resta caught Wehrlein and also found a spinning Junqueira, because that was the lap that should have given Paul a better grid position. And it just wasn't to be. So 12th means there's some work to be done, but you know, it's not in Paul's control where he finds spinning cars. Maybe the pit wall could have perhaps orchestrated it better so that he wasn't going to get in traffic, especially Mercedes traffic. But a session like that with people coming in for tires is always, as I say, a real hard call, a real lottery. But what the track conditions are going to be for the race, we don't yet know. It's almost bone dry now. But these look like pretty serious conversations that are happening at Mercedes. And it makes you think that somebody somewhere expected a Mercedes on pole position, and there's been a big gaffe.
I think you're right. As we just saw Paul de Resta in the garage there, and there he is in the car, and Paul de Resta finds himself mired down there in P12 at the moment for the start of the race, so with more work to do than perhaps he'd anticipated. So Paul de Resta, who was on the podium yesterday, well, we'll see what the weather does in terms of race conditions when the race comes up a little bit later on, but super slow-mos of Paul de Resta, and the crowds beginning to fill the grandstands here for this festival of motorsport that is the DTM opening weekend here at Hockenheim, 4.5-kilometre circuit. I suppose we're about an hour south of Frankfurt, thereabouts. It's a bit more.
Depends who's driving.
It does rather. It's you, it's 32 minutes.
Yes. But it is good to see such a big crowd. One of the complaints last year from fans was that there was relatively little running of the DTM. Well, that's certainly changed. There's the rollout, there's free practice, 2 qualifyings, 2 races, a warm-up as well that we've had this morning for the teams. But Mercedes...
Toto Wolff has been shaking his head.
Absolutely.
He is livid, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, after yesterday, when it looked very encouraging to have your best grid position as only 8th, he clearly expected more. Max Goetz was a casualty of the session, running off the road. And of course, wet grass, you just become a passenger. And it's very, very hard to get any traction at all. Danny Junqueira was off the road at a similar place yesterday and brought out the safety car in the dry race. Wet gravel compact, so you can at least drive through it. Goetz 22nd, Vitoris 23rd, Junqueira 24th. So some of the Mercedes engineers have got a bit of thinking to do before they get to the race. But it's so hard to actually know whether that is a car's true pace or not because of the conditions. Marco Wittmann here ending the session 4th, but he had an off, as you pointed out during the session.
That was very early stages of the session, because at that stage he was still on those wet weather tyres, and we can see it from being on board as he clatters into the gravel. And just to keep it out of the wall, thankfully, and enough momentum going that he was able to get out onto the grass. Well, we're going to get the grid in just a moment, but as we're getting the grid, hearing about some penalties that are being, you were right to say, you know, we don't take the qualifying until we actually have the confirmation. But right, let's bring you the grid as we know it at the moment, and that is no mistake in the fact that Mike Rockenfeller and Matthias Ekström go on the front row of the grid. It's pole position for Mike Rockenfeller.
The second row of the grid then is going to have Marco Wittmann and Edo Mortara lining up with the BMW ahead of the Audi.
Next row, we see Miguel Molina, who has been put back 3 places. Alongside him goes Martin Tomczyk, who was in the race yesterday, caused problems for that man behind, Gary Paffett.
Then it's Antonio Felix da Costa 7th. Gary Paffett will line up 8th on the grid here.
Next in order is the Belgian Maxime Martin, and Robert Wickens is alongside him, P9 and P10 there.
Next up, it's going to be Adrian Tambay. He is 11th for Audi, and it's Paul de Resta who's going to start 12th in his Mercedes.
Then we see Timo Scheider, hurt his arm yesterday, and Bruno Spengler alongside him.
Nico Müller and Timo Glock are going to start 15th and 16th on the grid. Audi ahead of BMW there.
We see Pascal Wehrlein and Augusto Farfus, who are being told has been put back 5 places.
And he's not the only BMW driver with a penalty, as you'll see shortly. Jamie Green is going to be 19th with a huge amount of work to do. Lucas Auer, a proud Mercedes driver, will start 20th.
Then we see 2 Mercedes together, Maximilian Goetz, then P21 with Christian Vittoris, P22.
The back of the grid then is going to be Danny Junckadea, and Tom Blomqvist also given a grid drop. So we'll get to the bottom of all of these penalties, but for now, provisionally, Tom Blom starts last.
If that grid drop has anything to do with you noticing him at the scrutineering bay and not being released back out again.
May well be. I mean, he was delivered to the team, but after a while. But Jamie Green, it is the winner of yesterday's race with a lot of work to do today. Race 2 is going to be good, Dave.
Yes, so join us for that if you will. That was qualifying done and dusted. Race 2 on its way this afternoon. Bye-bye from us.